I would be really keen to know your point of view on how IoT and 5G are going to change the demand for streaming technologies. What specifically TIBCO is offering for these verticals, and in your point of view, how this technology is going to grow in the next 5 years?
No, it's great. I mean, I used to always say, you can't do streaming analytics until you have a stream, right? So I think the reason it's actually taken probably 20 years or so for streaming to really sort of hit that tipping point is that it's just hard to get streaming real-time data. I mean, like you mentioned, 5G is just now coming. Sensors, when they first came out, were way too expensive to put on retail items, for example, or certainly in your household goods and your light bulbs, like they all are. So, 20 years later, it's kicked in and it is cost effective. The 5G is effectively like the dial tone, right? But the dial tone didn't stop. We didn't stop innovating at the old phone. We kind of kept going with mobile and voice over IP and stuff. So to me, 5G is and Kafka and networks and sensors. That's all just all of that stuff does is it's the plumbing that makes it easy to get access to this real-time data, right? Now we're at that point where it's like, okay, what do you do with it? And the exciting thing to me is that even though it's quite mature, I think there was a statistic that I wrote about recently about only 11% of companies have access to data that's less than an hour old, meaning they don't yet have real-time data or voluminous real-time data. So there's still a long ways to go. And that's just opportunity and innovation fun to be had for technologists.
One of the last questions I have is about TIBCO Labs, right? What are the most exciting projects or ideas that have originated from that department?
My gosh, for sure. I mean, it's funny. We wouldn't even really refer to it as. I don't think of it as a department. I think of it as the whole company's job is to be a lab for innovation. I mean, if you're in the tech industry, you're always innovating. So yeah, we have a CTO. His name is Nelson Patrick, and he kind of leads the sort of the experimental work that we do in the labs. But my product team. So I'm the guy that commercializes everything, right? The products, but we do the same and work with labs. I mean, it's all one team, right? So, so for sure, we're intimately involved in that. So the most, like, some examples of the cool things that I get most excited about or have been, and there's lots of them. I mean, we were looking at the patent. I mean, we issued a whole bunch of patents last year that came out of sort of either joint work with the labs or purely out of engineering. We've done interesting work in something called dynamic learning, which is a machine learning technique that's more popularized in the space of teaching robots how to walk on their own. So it's an incremental learning technology that learns on streams. Right, so we're talking about streams. So instead of just training on historical data, you're actually training based on what's happening right now. And that's really important for environments like high-tech manufacturing where things are changing all the time. You're changing the machine setup, the configurations are different, the factors that might predict breakage or loss of yield are going to change over time. Dynamic learning model kind of learns as the system changes on the fly. And that's really important when you don't have so much big data and it's streaming at you all the time. That's something that we issued a patent on last year that I'm really excited about. We've done other things in streaming through labs, like I think of as a digital DVR. So if you have a DVR at home to store your data for replay back, so you don't have to watch the show live. That's really important in the streaming data world too, right? Like if an oil rig breaks or something, right? Doing forensics on it and replay the events that led up to the problem can be really important. So the idea of creating a DVR that you can record and then kind of play the tape back and replay all those data points, that's another really innovative and cool thing. And then the third one that really springs to mind is is really just a radical simplification idea that we got about a wizard. That is a wizard that you attach to Kafka, and it learns what data types are on the stream and makes it so that you can just, with no code, connect it to a visual dashboard. So I'm actually kind of most fascinated by the innovations that just make your job easier, right? Because I think that's the way that we ultimately democratize and popularize all this real-time stuff.